evening and welcome to the Albany Public Library Board of Trustees meeting for July 2020. We are meeting online, as most public agencies are right now, and I'd like to introduce Melanie Metzger, the library's Assistant Director, to explain how the streaming works and what you need to do to make a comment.
So just a heads up, if anybody's been joining us for the previous meetings, this is a little different. We're streaming straight from our Google Meet, so no longer are you seeing my screen. You should be seeing the featured speaker will be the first person that you will see on these meetings, or the main person you will see. I'm going to share my screen right now, and it's going to show you the address, which is, should pop up there, public comment at albanypubliclibrary.org. Should you want to submit a public comment during this meeting, that email address is being monitored, and those comments will be read off at the end of the meeting during that phase of the meeting. So once again, that is public comment at albanypubliclibrary.org. I'm going to stop sharing and I'll turn this over to everybody now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the first thing on the agenda is the swearing-in of new trustees. And I've never done this online before, so we're going to do our best to make it as similar to what it would be like in person as possible. So let's start with Brigitte. All right, so what we're gonna do is pretend it's just you and me face to face, raising our right hands, and I'm going to say some stuff that you're gonna repeat, okay?
Okay.
All right. So, raise your right hand. I, Brigitte Pryor.
I, Brigitte Pryor.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of New York.
And the Constitution of the State of New York.
And that I will faithfully discharge the duties.
And I will faithfully discharge the duties.
Of the Office of Trustee of the Albany Public Library.
Of the Office of Trustees of the Albany Public Library.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Brigitte.
Okay. Woo-hoo. Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, I'm excited to have you on board. So Tom is joining now. At the annual meeting in person, we often have snacks. I hope you have some snacks nearby if you would like.
Yeah, pure leaf iced tea.
All right. So, waiting for Tom, who should be here any second now. He just said he was coming. Well, while we're waiting for that, Tom, is there any public comment, Rebecca?
No public comment yet, not at this time. Also, once we officially get going with the regular process, can we also do a roll call?
Yes. You mean for attendance purposes?
Yes.
Okay, well, I will say that all trustees are present.
Thank you.
Except for Arlene Way, who is excused and may come late, and Tom McCarthy, who is supposed to be coming any second now. So I'm not seeing him, and I'm wondering if I need to send him the link again. And I'll just say, I really appreciate the calendar appointment, Rebecca, that you've been sending out. And I also understand that that's not always easy. Oh, bless you. Not easy for all trustees. And so it might be helpful if we added that to the reminder emails as well. Link. So I just sent the link. Well, I guess we should move forward with the consent agenda, and we'll have to swear Tom in when he gets here. Sound okay? Any reason we couldn't do that? Okay. All right. Now I need to, I'm sorry, guys. I need to open up the consent agenda. Notes for myself. There we go. All right. Does anyone want to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay. So I will take a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Jenna. And then, Brenda, were you raising your hand a second? I'm sorry, Brenda, did you second? Great. All right. So we're going to do roll call as a request from the from Rebecca. So Brenda.
Yes.
Sarah Shearer.
Yes.
Jenna.
Yes.
Matthew.
Present.
Does that mean yes?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Sarah Dowd.
Yes.
Brigitte.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So now I got a text from Tommy's having a hard time joining. He said the link doesn't work. So who can help him?
I'm gonna try. I'll just send him an email.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Or I like have the link that I got in.
I also just sent one to his Gmail account.
That's crazy.
Okay.
You're doing something.
Thanks.
Is he in?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I heard all right, I'm in, and so I was like, oh, maybe.
Oh, I'm not seeing him.
Oh.
Okay. So next up is the treasurer's report, the draft treasurer's report, and capital fund report. So these are still draft prepared by the business office. Adam, is that correct?
So actually, Chuck is back in the building now. So he did prepare these reports. I cleaned them up a little bit, but he is back working a regular schedule now. So he is going to be able to take over running the reports again.
Okay, so that means these are not draft reports? They've been reconciled?
Yes. Yeah, these have been approved by the treasurer.
Okay. And so are we going to get our back, is he working on the back reports that were not reconciled?
Yeah, he can rerun those. I suspect they're not going to look too much different from the ones that were previously submitted. But yeah, he hasn't done those yet, I don't think, but
okay.
He can get those for next time.
Just to clarify, thank you. Okay, is there anything you'd like to point out in the reports?
So I'll just say that next month we can expect to see the final stub year numbers. So I won't go too much into what those might look like now. We can just discuss it then. I did want to mention on the capital fund report, we did transfer some money into the capital fund in May. This was related to the capital projects that were approved earlier this year. The money just didn't get moved at that time.
So I just want to say something for the benefit of our new trustee and for folks who may not understand. The stub year refers to the fact we've changed our fiscal year. I can't remember quite when we voted on that. but our fiscal year was January to December. We are changing it to July to June, and this is the year where it's changing. So our stub year is January to June. So this next report is when we'll be able to know what those final numbers are, or at least the preliminary final numbers.
Right.
Are there any questions from trustees about the treasurer's report or the capital fund report? No questions? So I have a couple. So I'm seeing that on the personnel, payroll and related costs, that the full-time salaries are right where they are expected to be based on the amount of the year that's been expended. And then it's the part-time salaries that are over. And I assume, as we've discussed before, this is because we were paying part-time staff while the library was shut down, not based on the hours they worked, but based on a set schedule of some kind.
I think that's part of it, yeah. I think when you see next month's report, I think it's actually going to balance out the, I believe full-time ends the year a little bit under and part-time ends the year a bit over, but it does balance out somewhat. So I think part of that also is just we hadn't previously divided up full-time and part-time salaries, and that division could have been adjusted a little bit. Had we done a budget mod during the stub year, we could have addressed it then.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you for, I had a question about the capital fund as well. So that includes the 2019 and the 2020 application now. Right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. Thank you for mentioning the difference in the capital fund. Now it includes the 2019 and the 2020 allocation.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm not sure what we want to do with that report. I noticed the report that Chuck had run initially in January, for January 2020, it included the 2019 numbers. So I don't know if we want to just start reporting on the 2020 numbers going forward, or if it's more helpful for you to see the entirety of the capital fund numbers.
And that's something that the finance committee can take on?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'm hearing from Tom that he's having issues in trying another computer. So Jenna, have you been able to connect with him?
I just realized you can neither see nor hear me. No, I just sent him an email.
Okay. I'm going to send you his number.
Yeah, I'll text with him and see what's up.
It's hard for me to do that at the same time as run the meeting.
Totally happy to help.
Thanks for your patience all. Okay. There we go. Just let him know it's you. Okay. All right, any other questions? Are we all set to move on to director's report? All right. Scott, you're unmuted.
So again, I apologize if you can't understand some of what I'm saying. In June, we hosted the June election at 3 of our locations. We spent a significant amount of time planning curbside pickup, which was launched July 6th. We did have a television stolen at Hvac. We did media there. The door lock did not engage. Later that evening, someone tried the door, figured out they could go in, and they stole the TV that was in the vestibule. We repaired the damaged window from May 30th. Juneteenth was treated as a working holiday, so staff who did decide to work on that holiday, they were given the chance to take the day off. Those who decided to work were paid as if it was a holiday, so they get a floating holiday. If you look at all, I think the majority of our locations, but North Albany, there are now woven fabric rainbows installed. Arbor Hill had to be installed inside just because there wasn't a good location to put it. But the rest of the rainbows can be found outside. Summer reading has begun for both youth and adults. We've seen a significant increase in reference questions over the last week, like a doubling. Actually, last week we answered 128 questions just in a week. Online program participation has stayed solid. In the future, we will be expanding our programs to use Zoom so we can do more live and in-person, well, virtually in-person programming. We're currently in the planning stages of our in-person services. Our hope, if the numbers are good statewide, is to launch those July 27th, according to the cost plan. That's phase 2. In July, we started doing curbside pickup, and we have already circulated 1,000 items. I think that was in the first 2 weeks of doing curbside pickup. And virtual book clubs have become extremely popular. The other thing that we're doing is a lot of building projects. This will be the first year since we've been doing capital projects that I think we're going to actually do all the capital projects that we were scheduled to do. I think that's the 2021 year will be the year where we finally get that program working well. And other than that, I open up the floor to questions.
Questions? Comments?
How have, oh, sorry.
Scott, I was just going to ask you, we're seeing something happening up here that after the first week or so of curbside, it's slowed down significantly. Are you seeing that too?
Yeah, we're seeing that. There's definitely a slowdown after the first week, but we think it'll actually pick back up because you got a lot of our power users getting a ton of books, and then they're going to take some time to read those books. And then I think there's going to be more of a rhythm over the next month or two.
I was just wondering how summer reading kicked off, like what the numbers were like compared to previous years. The app seemed easy.
The numbers are low, like everything else. It's, we're not getting those in the door people. I can ask what the numbers are and I'll get back to the group on that. Wait, you know what? Hold on. Actually, let me see if I can pull it up just real quick. I have the last report, I believe, in front of me. Let me just... No, they're not there. They were reported, but they're not actually in the written report. So I'll get back to the board about that.
Any other questions?
Actually, just really quick on that, I did find where we did have the numbers written for that. For Summer Reading Club, we have 100 adults, 18 teens, 57 youth, and 25 growing readers. And 15 individuals have finished the program already.
Thank you, Melanie.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to sign up without also signing myself up. And so maybe that helps the adult numbers. I was fine with it, but.
I was excited to read. Oh, here comes Tom.
Oh, there he is.
Hello, Tom. We're happy to see you. We're just finishing up the director's report. So I was really excited to see the e-charging station is moving forward. Is that a funding source that you had talked about some time ago?
Yeah, that's going to be, I think that's going to be almost 100% covered by, what's the organization? National Grid covers most of the putting it in and running the wires and things like that. And then the other organization, let me just find it real quick. And let me spell everything correctly. Let me see if I can find it. So that'll be done with Affordable Housing Partnership of the Capital Region, and yeah, and then National Grid.
Great. That's great. Any other comments?
And just to clarify for board members, that'll be at our Delaware branch. Originally, we looked at several branches. Delaware branch has the most ample parking, so we decided that was the best spot to do it.
Any last questions or comments? All right. Moving on to trustee reporting out and upcoming events. Virtual events. So if anybody wants to talk about their interactions with the library these days, that would be great. It looks like Tom has just left the meeting. So if he comes, when he comes back, I think we're just going to swear him in right away, which I should have done. And I forgot because I was looking at the agenda. So, all right. Jenna, would you mind texting him and just checking in with him? That would be great. So anybody have anything they want to talk about as far as what, how they've interacted with the library in the past month or so?
He says he'll be right back.
Okay. So it sounds like, Jenna, you signed up for summer reading?
I signed up for summer reading by accident, but Teddy signed up on purpose. And so we really were enjoying that, and we're kind of just figuring out how to use the app. There's Tom, if you want to swear him in real quick before he drops out. I also spent a lot of time talking to people about curbside. A lot of people were really, like, they had finished all their books, and so they were excited.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so exciting to see that moving forward. Anyone else have a chance to engage? All right. Well, I'm excited. I'm hoping to get some curbside books now that that's available. So good kudos to the staff for figuring out how to make that work, and really great to see how many people are using it. All right, let's swear Tom in. Just now I gotta find the where I put the oath.
And you can also find the oath in board docs as well.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks. I just I had opened it already, and there's several windows open, so it's hard to figure out what was what. There we go. Too many windows open. Okay, there we go. All right, Tom, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, right hand. We're gonna do this the best we can. Let me get this. Okay. I, Thomas McCarthy Jr.
I, Thomas McCarthy Jr.
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Trustee of the Albany Public Library,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Trustee of the Albany Public Library
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
All right. Congratulations. We are very happy to have you for a full term.
Thank you. Glad to be here, even when I'm late.
Sorry the technology wasn't working for you.
No worries.
Okay, next up is the Upper Hudson report. Matthew.
All righty. So there have been two, it's the Upper Hudson Library System, or UHLS, but I'm sorry. After naming it the first time, I'm just going to call it ULS because that's what I call it. So there were two ULS board meetings between our last meeting and now because of the way the Wednesdays fall. So the first one was immediately the day following our last meeting, and then the more recent one was last Wednesday. I'm not going to really talk about the June meeting, which was the earlier one. It was pretty standard fare. But I am going to go over the July 8th meeting a little bit with you guys because I got a little riled up, which happens at Ulls with me a lot. But just going through, if you see all the the different motions that happened, some great stuff happened in the beginning. The board approved an anti-racism statement, which was great, and some people had some very English teachery. I'm an English teacher, but they had some English teachery questions about the wording, but we ended up just accepting it as is, and I think it's fine. And the director of ULS sent that out the next day to the member libraries, and it's a good statement. I have links in the report where you can click on these things and read them, and I think I pasted it into this report somewhere. So that was great. And then another big thing that they did that I thought was good was they got rid of the Abe Lincoln holiday for all staff and replaced that with Juneteenth holiday, an official Juneteenth holiday. And Alls had like a President's Day and a Lincoln Day. So, we'll just consolidate the presidents with Lincoln with the other presidents, and we'll spread the holidays out and we'll honor Juneteenth, and that's great. Then they talked about a funding formula that they want to vote in kind of forever, where member libraries who are applying for DLD grants from the state for improvements and projects, there's different levels of funding, and they approved criteria that would, so you could have your project funded, I think maybe 50%, and then there's one that allows your project to be funded 75%, and then there's one that allows your project to be funded 90%. Because of the criterion one of the criteria that they chose, which is community funding, and I'll just make this brief. You can read the details in all the links that I said. But the way they chose this community funding criterion means that all of Albany's branches are considered under the same community funding criterion, which comes out in practice meaning that none of our projects will ever be eligible for 90% funding. So instead of sputtering and ranting and raving, which I often do at Ulls, I contained myself and I simply asked the question, what happens if your library has branches in historically disadvantaged neighborhoods, yet they can't get funded at the maximum funding criteria because this formula only looks at Albany as a whole? And the answer was kind of like, too bad. So the steam was coming out of my ears, but I went back on mute and I wrote a letter to the executive director, Jim Burke, the leadership of the board, and the chair of the committee who came up with this idea, which is also in my report. You can read it. And I sent it the next day about the same time that the executive director sent out the anti-racism statement. And the threat, I tried to be nice. I tried to look at the positives first in the letter. But the thrust of the letter is that, how dare you spend all this time proclaiming yourself an anti-racist organization while at the same time smacking down the chance for maximum funding for our neediest branches? Because we, as a library, when we apply, each branch is considered a separate library. So by using this criterion that lumps Albany all together, they've actually made it impossible for us to ever get the maximum funding. Now, we do fall into the 75% category, which is great. But Albany is not monolithic, and we need a criterion that's going to take that granularity and really maximize the funding when we're applying for a very needy neighborhood, a neighborhood that really needs a boost. So that was what happened. That was my response. They have not replied to my letter. They were probably hoping it was a resignation letter, but it was not. And because I'm always giving problems at L's, because I'm always advocating for Albany. And that's the long and the short of the L's story for this past month. Any questions on that one?
Well, thank you for advocating.
Of course, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Is Albany the only library that has branches in the Upper Hudson system?
Troy has one branch, a Maine and a Lansingburg.
And it might actually, we may want to reach out to the Troy board as well, because I think this would have the same adverse effect on Lansingburg.
Yes, although Evelyn, the trustee for L's, who I adore,
yes,
did not dissent with me. I was the only one. I was the only no vote on this one. So that it carried the criteria, the funding formula I carried, unfortunately.
Did people acknowledge the inequity of the formula?
I couldn't say. I wasn't getting a lot of, no. It was me being a screamy jerk as usual. But I wasn't as screamy.
Jerk. Absolutely right. You were absolutely right.
I wasn't as screamy as usual, but they were, I think, bracing themselves. But I went back on you.
So I don't understand. I mean, I understand the concept of obviously there's less match for these 90-10 grants, but what are the criteria that made us ineligible for them?
They chose a criterion called community funding. So it takes our tax resources that we get and just applies it to the city as a whole. Instead of saying, oh, Howe branch, we're applying for a neighborhood that's historically disadvantaged, we need to be bumped into the higher funding criterion. That won't happen because they're looking at our funding as a whole instead of our branches.
But so how the law says what they have to consider when they do this, and I don't think, and it has like some poverty formula already written in the law, like 25% of people in the area must be.
Yes. So when they look at that part of it, they look at it for Albany as a whole. So we fall into the middle category of 75-25. But if you were to pick it apart for our actual locations, it really doesn't work. But they don't do that, and they don't seem to care to want to.
Tom, I think it's a reflection in the law about the funding. So we have, compared to other libraries, we have a pretty solid funding stream. I'm curious in the law if it's if the budget is a reflection of what we have for our operations budget, or is it what we have for our budget, including our bonds? So that's something I want to look at moving forward, because are they taking our overall budget or just?
I think that's a great thing that we need to investigate. From what I could understand, leading up to what I read before the meeting and during the meeting, it was, I don't think it was. I think they're looking at the vote for funding that we get from our citywide vote. Yeah.
Okay.
So we should check that.
And
yeah, that doesn't sound right to me, but we should check it out.
Yes.
Okay. And then the other thing, Matthew, you can just remind them, when we do an application for the specific branch, not as the district.
Yes.
So I think that's a little strange that we have to do the application for the branch, but they're considering the overall district.
Yes, which I mentioned in the letter, but yes, for our board, that's a great point. It's we apply for each library, each branch library as a library. So this kind of negates, you know, our case that we might make that this particular library is in a historically underserviced area, because it just lumps us all together as one.
I don't know how much more time we want to spend, but I just refreshed my memory while you were talking, Matthew, and the new 90% law says that the library has to demonstrate, Albany Public Library has to demonstrate that we lack the ability to fund more than 25% of the project.
Well, I understand it as an OLS funding formula that they had the board vote in. I don't think this is the law, but this is how they want to distribute their funds going forward. This is how they want to set the criteria for who gets the 50, the 75, and the 90.
Okay. Yeah, we should look into it.
So I think it's very unfair, and I tried to make my voice heard for us.
Thank you for sticking up for us.
Thank you, Matthew. Next up is the Facilities Committee report, and Matthew is going to do that again.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to take the first bullet. If you're looking at the report, I'm going to skip that because that's a motion that I'm going to bring to the floor of the full board. And I'm just going to go down the bullets. The wonderful Alyssa actually compiled these minutes. And I was texting with Scott that I got so fumed about the whole situation that I kind of forgot some of the things we talked about at this meeting. But we talked about our facilities plan, which is a very detailed plan that we'll be bringing to the board. We asked facilities manager Adam Firebaugh to revise some of his numbers, which Eagle Eye Alyssa caught, like some of them were off in different places. So Adam's working on that. Eventually that's going to come out for the full board to study. And then we talked about our capital update projects. Basically, Scott updated us on a lot of things that have been going on. There's a solar roof going on at Hvac. The parking lot at Delaware is, I guess, pretty crazy. And that's being redone. There's an idea that we can put in a generator at Pine Hills, and that's I guess much needed, and Adam's looking into that. Adam's been switching all of our buildings over to Johnson Controls so he can maximize. It was different buildings were run by different companies, so he's trying to switch it into one company so he can really maximize the efficiencies of that. And what was this last one? Wells Communication. So I'm not quite sure what that even is, what the repeaters are, but they're moving around somehow. Did you have more information you could share on that, Scott?
Sure. So the repeaters are for the walkie. We're moving some of our communication as we move to a digital phone. We also want to build in redundancy in our buildings. So this was part of our capital projects for this fiscal year, which is putting in radio repeaters in every one of our buildings so that our facilities crew, our community engagement clerks, and even our administration can communicate. We currently have this model. We currently have this model here at Washington Avenue. It works really well. It's a walkie-talkie system. We're going to actually do that so we can communicate at all of our locations and have repeaters at all of our locations. This, again, is to answer the concern of if we go digital voice over IP for our phone system, they often go down, so we'll still be able to communicate with our branches. It's also a more direct communication between our branches. It also gives us the ability to track down and have communicate with our security and our facilities staff, in direct communication. So we're just putting repeaters on every building so that that communication can happen.
Wow, I totally couldn't have said that. Sorry to make you.
I had a hard time saying it myself.
You said it great. The last piece here on our report is we were just talking about getting everybody back into the building on the schedule that we had approved. And Adam mentioned that they were having a hard time getting hold of supplies. So that is one thing ULS has done. They've ordered a huge bulk order of PPE, like masks. They have the full face shield, they have gloves, and they mentioned at the last meeting they do have a lot of gloves still. And they're doing this on behalf of their member libraries who can buy them at cost. So they've made the initial investment, but they're expecting the libraries to buy most of them back, and they'll probably use some for their staff as well. Now we're going to go back to the first item, because this is the famous DLD, or Department of Library Development, grant proposal. So I felt bad about making a stink, because we're also asking them for money, but that's their job, to decide on granting out money for different projects. So Scott and his staff have been working on renovating the HVAC systems for Pine Hills as the project proposal. Scott, I'm sorry to make you talk, but did you want to say anything else about this before I bring it to the floor of the full board?
Sure. This time there's a focus on Pine Hills. We're trying to rotate around all the different branches every year, have another branch touched on. This year, they're both capital projects, so they're both projects that actually the board has approved to go forward with. The first one is making office space at our Pine Hills branch. Pine Hills is our second largest library. It's also the home library for our head of branches. So the open office plan now is definitely kaput. But we experimented with open office plans at all of our locations, and they were not working, especially for positions like heads of branches that do a lot of personnel work. So we want to do this to at least create one office. We're thinking we may actually be able to create 3 offices on the second floor of Pine Hills. Again, this gives people a little bit of safety, no shared offices like we currently have, and also gives the head of branches is giving up a rather large working space for a smaller working space, so that the branch manager and maybe another staff member can have a space to go to. So that's the first component. The second component of this project is, of course, the HVAC system upgrades, switching over to that Meta system. The board agreed, I believe, last board meeting to have all of our HVAC systems using the same computer and software. So then we can monitor them using the same dashboard. So this would be that project, but this would pay for that project as well. And again, these are all projects that have, what we've been doing since last year, I believe, is taking capital projects that the board has already agreed are going to be capital projects, and then designating some of them for Department of Library Development grant funding.
So thank you so much, Scott. Again, couldn't have done that. But when I was there, present with the facilities committee, the committee moved for board consideration to take this Pine Hill set of projects for Pine Hills, renovation of the HVAC system and the office upgrades. It was moved and seconded, and we'll be applying to DLD for a $124,000 project, which means under the funding formula, we should be getting, if we are approved, if our competitive proposal is approved, we'd be getting $90,000. So I'd like to take that motion from the facilities committee and put it forward to the full board.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. And we'll do that under new business. So we have
a
few more items, but we will definitely do that.
So those, I jumped the gun there. So those are my reports.
Thank you. There's just one piece that was skipped over because there was a lot of HVAC in here.
Yes.
Heating, ventilation, air conditioning. So you're working on the staff are working on COVID-19 preventative measures in the HVAC system.
Yeah. Yes, Adam and I are becoming experts each step of the way. And we've been meeting last month. We actually met with our HVAC consultants, and we keep going back. We've discussed HEPA filters before they became popular from the governor. So we felt like we were ahead of Governor Cuomo on this. So we've discussed HEPA filters. We've discussed airflow. We have discussed ionization, which is something I'm interested in, but is costly. We've discussed UV lighting, and Adam is actually looking into the UV lighting that's actually in public spaces as well. So all of those things are on the table. Airflow is a big concern. It's why we're looking at some of the branches that we're considering for even opening for partial service to the public. You need high ceilings and tremendous amount of airflow. You also like to have a lot of windows. You like a lot of sunlight. So those are all the things that we're looking at as we move forward, and we plan to have more people in the buildings than we currently do. But yes, I'm probably going to go into HVAC in my retirement career. I feel like an expert. I don't, but I feel like I know way more than I did before. Adam's big warning is that we're going to have to significantly increase the amount of air brought in, which will be bringing up the cost of operating our building. He's been very clear, and he's wanted me to make that very clear to the board going forward, that that's going to be, that is definitely going to be, there's definitely going to be an impact there. So, we're there between watching what Rome's doing with material and now seeing, the discussion around buildings and airflow. I am confident that we're in a good place. I am way less pessimistic about things than I was 2 months ago. So we're moving in the right direction. I think we're being very, very smart in the way we're kind of using science and best practice from retail and medical to kind of guide us moving forward.
So I just want to pause and talk about why that's important, because I realized we skipped over that part. Does anybody have any specific questions before we talk about that piece? Why that's?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Scott, do you or Adam have a ballpark number? You said costs will increase when you increase the airflow.
We don't have a ballpark number yet, but I mean, I would say 10 to 20%, especially in the winter, because you're bringing cold air from the outside, warming it up, and then bringing it in. Well, usually you'll recirculate warm air to warm air. So that's going to be a big input. We're probably with AC, it's very hard to catch up. So we're probably going to see warmer buildings. So not only is it going to increase costs, but it'll probably increase complaints from both staff and public about, I believe this is going to be across the board. I think if you work in the LOB, be prepared for warmer summers and colder winters. Just because the way the systems need to be run just means it'll be more ambient outside air. And that's going to be more like outside temperatures.
So the reason that's so important, if you're following the news, it looks like COVID could be spread by aerosols. And there's evidence that heating ventilation systems spread it throughout the building. And so, which is frightening, right? Because we have all these beautiful buildings and we don't want to be responsible for spreading more. And so I'm so pleased that Scott's plan took his time, took the library's time, and just as we learn more about why that's important, to make sure we know what's actually going on, and we're doing things to help keep our patrons and staff safe. So we don't want to be recirculating coronavirus through the library if at all possible. And by making these investments, we'll make our buildings safer, our community healthier.
Is there a way to test how clean the air is?
No, not right now. There's no air unless we're a lab and doing laboratory-like testing. No, it's just like testing human beings. It is a developing science that's very behind. I am sure a year from now or 2 years from now, we will be looking at things like that. But for right now, the only way they're testing the air, or the only studies that I have seen, haven't actually been tests of the air, but actually tests of the filters. But, this is all good. I mean, look where we are. It's been 6 months and we're already very far ahead and impressive in some of the science and the way that we're looking at things. As I joked with a friend of mine the other day, we're probably going to get the cure for the common cold out of this. So, that's a great question, and maybe something we should be thinking about, not just for COVID-19 or coronaviruses in general. Because remember, some coronaviruses are the cause of the common cold, about 20%, but also hopefully there'll be an influenza test for air as well, because the flu also has a significant impact on the people we serve and our staff. So I just think we're all going to become much more aware of human health when it comes to public service.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions for any of the facility committee notes?
I don't know if this is appropriate to ask this now, Karen, or not. The amount of construction funding that Upper Hudson was dramatically reduced. Are there a lot of applications in? And can we do the project if we don't get 75% match?
So Upper Hudson is not shared how much. They usually do, but they haven't yet. We were going to do a much larger ask, so this is actually a reduced ask from what we originally were thinking of doing. And yes, we do. Again, these are capital projects that have been approved. So if we move forward, we can use capital funds to do these projects, but it's with the calculation of spending down our capital funds much quicker than we would like to. So are there funds? Yes. Are there funds that we necessarily want to use? No, but if we feel the need to do them, like the HVAC system, yes, then we'll go ahead and do that.
You don't know how many applications were submitted, or you don't know how much their pot of money is?
We are not aware of how many applications were submitted yet.
Thank you, Scott.
Well, we don't know. We haven't submitted ours yet because we still have to vote on that. So, but we don't know how much money either. That's what I heard you say too.
Oh, it's on a chart, how much money Upper Hudson will get for its members. I can look it up and share that.
Greatly reduced from prior years. But the thing that had, and so a lot of people, if we go back to this vote that I dissented on, some of the people did push back and say, well, nobody's going to get full funding, right? That we're all cut back. But for me, for my issue, that was not the point, because these rules are going to be used going forward. So everybody's going to be a little bit hard up based on the funding available. But the whole 90-10 thing is something they want to keep going in perpetuity. So even if we can imagine getting to better years, that vote will still hold unless we somehow get people with us to knock it down.
Thank you, Matthew. All right, so moving on, there's a second.
Karen, can I just say one thing? If Alyssa's listening, I just want to thank her for her work on the facilities committee. This current incarnation of the committee has been very fun. I'll say fun, has been great to work with, and my favorite facilities committee so far. So thank you, Alyssa, if you're listening.
Those are big shoes then we need to fill as we populate our next committees. I just want to bring all the trustees' attention to the informational items. And I'm just realized something. Brigitte, did you get access to the agenda? You're muted, so I can't hear you.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But I just been taking notes and listening right now. So
All right. So
Wait, you don't have login for board docs?
I'm sorry.
I sent you didn't get the login information for board docs?
No.
yeah, we'll talk about this offline, but what I would really appreciate, Rebecca, if you could do is put in the chat the link, the public link for, thank you, Sarah Dallas. Put the public link for the board docs agenda so she can follow along, please. There it is. So, Brigitte, I'm really sorry about that. And this link, if you click on this link, the agenda should pop up and you'll see all the attachments. So we are now on item number 7, which is informational items. And I'm just going to go through the list quickly. I'm not going to talk about these. This is something that is in part response to trustees' request that things come in advance before the vote. So, well, the first thing on the list is the brainstorm we had last month. Those are the notes. We had a great conversation about the future of library service given COVID and the awareness of systemic racism being raised. So those are things we can move forward in future years. And then the 2021 board meeting schedule, which we vote on. Oh no, we don't vote on that at all, right? That's just an informational piece. And then the 2021 schedule of service.
Karen, you do vote on the meeting schedule.
Okay, we'll just do that later. We don't do it today.
You don't do it today. We're going to talk about it in August.
Okay, great. And then the 2021 schedule of service, which is the days the library is open and closed. And again, we're going to vote on that in August or September. That's usually when we vote. Okay, so that's just for you to look at and think about for the next time. And then lastly is the ACAP, which I'm trying to remember the acronym, Albany Community Action Partnership.
Yes.
They rent space out of our Washington Avenue branch, and they're looking to renew the lease. But this is not an action item tonight.
No, they're not looking to renew the lease. They're taking the option, the first year of a 2-year option on the lease. The board does not need to vote on it.
I see.
Just to make the board aware that they're taking the option. So they're definitely staying with this for another year. They're actually interested in negotiating an additional lease after this year, but for right now, they're just taking the first of 2 options that they get based on the agreement that was approved by the board June 2017 and then amended in 2018.
Thank you for clarifying that. Great. So that's just informational pieces. I guess I can throw in there that well, never mind. Talk about that next one. Okay, so new business, update on the cost.
Question?
Yep.
For the calendars, at least for the board calendar, should we consider switching it over to our new fiscal year? Because this is the annual meeting of the board and our year runs July to June. Should we consider an annual calendar on that schedule instead of January through December? Just an idea.
We kind of do. We can do one that extends out, but that's why we do our annual meeting in July. Actually, we've operated as a board in the correct calendar, if you think about it, because our first official meeting is in July, which is our first fiscal year. So we could do something that runs us all the way till runs us all the way out if we want to, or gives 6 months. We could easily do that. But if you look at the calendar itself, it actually runs. Our first official meeting is in July. But we could add another 6 months if we want to do that. Or just do a stub 6 month. Either or.
Maybe we'll, yeah. And obviously the next 6 months are already approved somewhere in board docs.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so next up, any other comments or questions before we move to the COSP, the continuation of services plan? Okay. Obviously, are there any updates to the continuation of services plan?
So there is, if you look on page 10, I believe it's 10. I've been saying 10 all week. Or maybe not, maybe I'm wrong. The only thing that has been added is addendum 4. The addendums have been changed. And addendum 4 just gives a safety outline for curbside pickup service guidance. And then just there's been a change to our safety plan that includes some of the safety planning that comes around curbside pickup. No major changes. We're still following the phases. We're still in phase 1B and working towards phase 2. You're on mute, Karen.
I just figured that out. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the continuation of services plan? This is the plan for how we're going to reopen or maintain services while our buildings were closed, and how we will introduce them as situation changes. Okay. Thank you, Scott. Next up is the 2020. I can't even say 2021. That's all it needs to say, 2021. The construction grant project. So now, Matthew, there is a motion on the table from the Facilities Committee to move forward the Pine Hills renovation and the HVAC system upgrades for a DLD grant, a Division of Library Development grant, state funding for 2021. So that's a motion from the Facilities Committee. So I need a second from another trustee. Thank you, Sarah Shearer. And any discussion on that? Okay, we'll vote with roll call. Brenda?
Yes.
Sarah Shearer?
Yes.
Jenna?
Yes.
Matthew?
Aye or yes.
Sarah Dallas?
Yes.
How are you frozen? Okay. Brigitte?
Yes.
And I vote yes. I can't unmute Tom, but it doesn't look like his picture is moving either. All right, well, the motion carries. Next up is the appointment of the board treasurer. Tom, is that you on the phone?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yes.
So,
Hi, this is Tom on the phone.
thank you. We just voted on the Division of Library Development grant.
I also vote yes on that.
Okay, so
Thank
Rebecca,
you.
can you amend that to add a yes from Tom, please? Okay, so next up is the appointment of board treasurer. We are nominating Charles Slatterick again this year as our board treasurer. Can I get a motion to approve? Sarah Shearer, motion to approve Charles Slatterick as the board treasurer for the 2021 year. And a second?
I'll second Sarah D.
Thanks, Sarah Dallas. Okay, and we'll do roll call again. Brenda? You're muted.
Finally, yes.
Okay, thank you. Sarah Scherer,
Yes.
Jenna,
Yes.
Matthew,
Aye.
Sarah Dallas,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Brigitte,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Next up is appointing the deputy board treasurer. Melanie Metzger. So we did that this year because of challenges related to COVID, and the vice president for finance thought it was a wise idea to continue having that position. So we need a motion to nominate Melanie Metzger as the deputy board treasurer.
So moved.
Oh, thanks, Sarah Dallas. And a second? Matthew, are you raising your hand? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? All right. Get my chart out here. Brenda,
Yes.
Sarah Scherer,
Yes.
Jenna,
Aye.
Matthew,
Aye.
Sarah Dallas,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Brigitte,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, great. Congratulations to Chuck and Melanie. Thank you for your service. Next up is and last on the agenda is election of board officers. I've got to pull my script up because it's slow, and if you remember what this is like, there's a lot of voting. So take a deep breath and get ready. So we are now ready to conduct the election of officers. We'll proceed in the following order: President, Vice President for Finance, and Secretary. I will first open nominations for the office of President. Does any trustee wish to make a nomination? Jenna.
I would like to nominate Matthew for the office of President.
Is there a second to that nomination?
A second.
Thank you, Brenda. Are there any other nominations for President? Hearing no further nominations, I'll entertain a motion to close the nominations for President. Sarah Scherer, motions to close, and a second.
Second.
Was that you, Brenda? I didn't catch.
Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion? And now we need to vote to close the nominations. Brenda.
Aye. Yes.
Sarah Scherer.
Aye.
Jenna.
Aye.
Matthew.
Aye.
Sarah Dallas.
Aye.
Aye.
Brigitte.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. The motion carries and the nominations are closed. I will now call for the election of president. All those in favor of Matthew Finn. I'm going to go and do roll call as the president.
Yes.
All right, so Brenda, did you already say yes?
Yes.
Okay. Sarah Scherer.
Yes.
Jenna.
Yes.
Matthew.
Yes.
Sarah Dallas.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Brigitte.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Based on that vote, I declare that Matthew Finn is elected as the president for 2021.
Yay! Thank you.
Yay!
Congratulations. Okay, so now we can do that 3 more times. Ready?
Hey, Karen,
Wait, can we take a minute to thank Karen for her dedicated service and
Yes,
just
I hope so.
amazing job as president for the past couple of years? Karen, you've been an inspiration.
Thank you.
And we're so
So-
excited to have Matthew, but we will miss you.
I'm taking in my sandals here, my bare feet actually, because I don't know how to follow up such a class act.
Very nice. Bob, what were you going to suggest?
I was just going to say, this script that you're running through obviously works better in person, as I just realized, but it also harkens back to a period in time where there was a group of trustees that didn't feel comfortable with a slate of officers, and they wanted there to be open nominations from the floor. So I'm not suggesting a change tonight, but if that is no longer the will of the board, as long as there is an open, non-secret ballot vote on the individual officers, you don't have to go through this open nominations process. It's just something that has existed because there was one particular trustee and then a group that supported him that felt that, it was a way to be an offset against a slate. So just by way of history.
Thank you. I'm not sure we should change the process now. The only thing I can think to speed it up is to do voice vote. Rebecca, would you be okay with that for this process?
I'm consulting with Simon. Hold on with Stephanie. 1 second.
Well, you can definitely do a voice vote with respect to the nominations part. That shouldn't be difficult.
Okay.
And what you can do, Karen, is you've got your trustees here. You can just ask if there are any nays and make the voice vote a little bit more efficient.
Yeah.
The minutes have to be recorded with a vote for everyone. That's the concern that Rebecca has.
Yes.
Okay, so pending her conferring, we can do voice vote for nominations, and then we'll do roll call for the actual election of the office.
Yes, that works. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's do that. That'll speed up a little bit. Okay. I will next open nominations for the office of Vice President. Does any trustee wish to make a nomination? Yes, Sarah.
I nominate Jenna Patera for Vice President.
Is there a second to that nomination?
A second.
Thank you, Brenda. Any other nominations for Vice President? Hearing no further nominations, I'll entertain a motion to close the nominations for Vice President. Thanks, Brenda. Okay, then Sarah, if you're seconding, Sarah Dallas, you're seconding. I'll take that as a second. And then we'll voice vote that. So all in favor say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
All right, are there any nays? Great. The motion carries and the nominations are closed. I now call for the election of Vice President. All those in favor of Jenna Patera. And now we'll do the roll call. We're going to do the roll call now.
Aye.
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 Aye on everything.
I'll do it fast, but we're going to go through the roll call for Rebecca's sake. All right. Brenda.
Aye.
Sarah Shearer.
Aye.
Jenna.
Aye.
Matthew.
Aye.
Sarah Dallas.
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Brigitte.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. Okay, based on that vote, the chair declares Jenna Patera elected as Vice President for 2020-2021.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm honored.
All right. Next up, Vice President. So I will open those nominations. Does any trustee wish to make a nomination for Vice President for Finance?
I move Sarah Shearer.
Thank you, Sarah Dallas. And second, Matthew? Thank you. Are there any other nominations for Vice President for Finance? Hearing no further nominations, I'll entertain a motion to close the nominations for Vice President for Finance.
So moved.
Thank you, Jenna and Matthew. All right. And voice vote for that. Voice vote for that. All in favor say aye.
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 Are there any nays? All right. The motion carries and the nominations are closed. I will now call for the election For the Vice President for Finance, all those in favor of Sarah Shearer. And we are going to do voice vote. I mean, not voice vote, roll call vote. Brenda.
Aye.
Sarah Shearer.
Aye.
Jenna.
Aye.
Matthew.
Aye.
Sarah Dallas.
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Brigitte.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Based on that vote, I declare that Sarah Shearer is elected the Vice President of Finance 2020-2021. Congratulations. Thank you, Sarah, so much for your service there, and we're glad that you are willing to serve that.
Thank you, service.
Thank you.
Okay, finally. I will open nominations for the office of Secretary. Does any trustee wish to make a nomination?
I
nominate
Strong.
I'm going to call Brenda on that one, and Jenna the second. Are there any other nominations for Secretary? Hearing no further nominations, I'll entertain a motion to close the nominations for Secretary.
So moved, Sarah Dallas.
Thanks, Sarah Dallas.
Second.
All right,
Second, Sarah Shearer.
Okay. All those in favor of closing nominations, please say aye.
Aye.
And are there any opposed? No? Great. The motion carries and nominations are closed. I will now call for the election of Secretary. All those in favor of Karen Strong. We're going to do a roll call. Last one. Brenda.
Aye.
Sarah Shearer.
Aye.
Jenna.
Aye.
Matthew.
Aye.
Sarah Dallas.
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Brigitte.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. Based on that vote, I declare that Karen Strong has been elected Secretary for 2020-2021. Congratulations.
Yay.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks so much. And thanks, congratulations to all of us for 2020-2021. Now that we have a new executive committee, we will need to schedule a meeting to assign trustees to committees. So after this meeting, we will send out a questionnaire to all the trustees to identify which positions you're interested in, so that we can do that. And we want to do that for the August meeting. All right. Did any other public comment come in during the meeting? Rebecca?
No public comment, sorry.
Thank you so much. All right. If there's no further business, we are ready to take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Sarah Dallas. And a second. Thank you, Jenna. Can I do a voice vote for this? Yes. Okay. Let's do voice. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed to that? All right. Thanks so much. And thank you so much for all your support over the last 3 years. And I'm very excited to pass it on.
Yeah, I just want to go on record to thank you for your presidency and the guidance that you provided, probably in one of the toughest times this organization has ever faced. So I just really want to say I appreciated working with you as president and look forward to working with you as the secretary.
I'm delighted to
Same here.
Another year. Thank you so much for all your